Welcome to the GardeningDad.com's Gardening School. My name is Paul, and in this course, I'm going to teach you how to prune any type of fruit tree in less than 5 minutes. This course is going to cover two different pieces of information. Number one, how to prune your fruit trees, and number two, common mistakes that beginner gardeners have when pruning any type of fruit trees. So let's begin. There are several tips you should follow when pruning your fruit tree to make sure you're doing it properly and do not provide harm to your fruit tree. Tip number one, you always want to prune any type of fruit tree in late winter or early spring before the buds on your fruit trees bloom. If they've already bloomed, you're going to want to go ahead and not prune this year. Pruning when there's flowers, when there's leaves on your trees, or even fruit can not only stunt the tree's growth, but also limit the amount of fruit that you'll receive. Tip number two, you're going to want to prune any type of dead wood that you have on the tree off of it. This includes any type of wood that may have fungus, disease, or just looks like it's about to die. This is going to provide more of the nutrients and growth to the healthier parts of your tree. Tip number three, you're going to want to go ahead and prune any type of wood that is pointing inwards or is inside your tree. These types of wood or branches are going to limit the amount of sunlight that the leaves and fruit would normally receive. So by pruning all of that wood that's inside or pointing inwards, it will allow that fruit tree to have a great shape, and your fruit and leaves will receive all the nutrients, all the sunlight and water to allow them to grow properly and taste the best way possible. Another tip that you're going to want to follow is that any type of branch that is pointing downwards or even sideways, you're going to want to prune it. We want to look for healthy branches that are pointing upwards and outwards from the tree. Again, this is to help develop that shape and to provide the most sunlight to the parts of the tree that are going to bear fruit. Another tip that I have is that you're also going to want to prune any type of branches that are rubbing against other parts of the tree or may rub against other branches or other parts of the tree. By having two branches or two pieces of wood on your tree rub up against each other, it could put your tree and those branches at risk for diseases and just not as healthy as if your branches weren't touching. Another tip that I have is also, and this typically doesn't happen in the spring and you'll see it more in the summer, is remove any type of suckers. Suckers are small pieces of the branch that are growing out either from the bottom of the tree or even on the sides of the tree, and those aren't going to provide any type of fruit, but they're called suckers because they will absorb all of the water and nutrients, limiting what gets to the leaves and the other parts of the trees that are going to provide you with fruit. And finally, prune any type of branches that you feel isn't going to properly shape your tree. If you want it to be in a vase shape, make sure you prune your tree that way. If you want it to look a certain way, please go ahead and do that. So if there's any other types of branches, you're more than welcome to go ahead and prune those off your fruit trees. And most importantly, every spring, every late winter, you're going to want to prune about 20 to 30% of your tree. If you do less, the odds are you're not going to have as quick of a growing tree or as much fruit. If you do more, it potentially could stunt the growth or harm your fruit tree. So these are just some quick tips that you're going to want to follow to make sure that you are pruning that tree to provide it with the most and healthiest fruit possible. In the next part of this course, I'm actually going to show you how to prune those branches and what specifically to look for. In this part of the course, we're going to actually demonstrate how to properly prune your fruit tree. Right now, I'm looking at the base of an apple tree, and you can see there are some suckers growing out of it. Again, these suckers will absorb all the water and nutrients, limiting the growth of the trees or parts of the tree that you actually want that's going to bear fruit. So very simply, you're just gonna go ahead, take some hand pruners, and I'm just gonna go ahead and start pruning away. What I wanna make sure that you're aware of is you just go ahead and take these pruners and just cut your tree at an angle. So here's a good example. Here we are. Sometimes you may need some loppers, but in this case, you can see these hand pruners get the job done. Again, at an angle, you can see there's even some dead wood here. And a little bit later, I'll take some loppers and get rid of some of this thicker wood. You can also see, we're gonna wanna prune any type of dead wood. And again, like we talked about, you're gonna just wanna prune it at an angle. And you can go ahead, and this looks like a dead piece of wood. I'm gonna go ahead and just prune this. As we talked about, you're also gonna wanna go ahead and prune any type of branches that are pointing inwards. I've identified a few here. There's one right here. I'm just gonna go ahead and cut it at an angle like we talked about. Here's a really good one, just pointing inwards. At first glance, you may think this is one you wanna keep, but I guarantee it's a great one to remove. And again, sometimes for these, you're gonna wanna do loppers, but I think so far we're in good shape. Here's another great example, pointing inwards and not out. So I'm gonna go ahead, just always prune it right at the base. There's a couple more. Not only that, I'm gonna go ahead and I wanna prune any branches that may cross. And here are two good ones. Not only are these gonna cross, but they're pointing inwards. Finally, here's a great example of a branch that's pointing outwards, but isn't pointing up. So again, another piece that we're gonna wanna go ahead and prune off. Now that we've finished pruning our fruit tree, you can see that it looks much different. There's a lot less branches on the tree, and that's okay. In addition, it's much better shaped than what it was before. The key thing to remember is this tree will fill and continue to grow as spring and summer goes on. Now let's talk a little bit around common mistakes that gardeners make when pruning their fruit trees. The biggest mistake that I see most beginner gardeners make when pruning fruit trees is just doing it at the wrong time. They'll typically prune their fruit trees in the summer, which will cause extreme stress on those trees. They'll do it in the fall when it's just not the right time, or they'll do it when there's too many blooms or growths on that tree. Again, I recommend pruning your fruit tree late winter to early spring when the buds are still dormant. That means you cannot see the green, there's no leaves, there's no fruit, anything like that. I also recommend doing it in the morning when it's cooler and the tree can recover a lot more quickly and effective. Another common mistake that gardeners make when pruning their fruit tree is just not pruning enough. They may try to prune one or two branches, but that's not going to promote growth and that's not going to help the tree bear more fruit. A lesser mistake that gardeners make, but sometimes I still come across, is just pruning too much. Every year we want to prune only 30% of that tree. Sometimes gardeners get a little happy and will go ahead and prune 50, 60, 70% of the tree. That will also cause quite a bit of stress, and what I've typically seen, most trees will not recover and some will even die from it. Finally, and we didn't talk too much about this, making sure that you have the right tools. A common mistake that gardeners make is just having dull blades, which could stunt or cause harm to your fruit tree. They don't clean their equipment, so if they're pruning one fruit tree and it has disease, it could spread to other fruit trees, and they're just not keeping those tools sharp and covered and in good shape. So if you need new tools, feel free, go out to your local gardening store, go on Amazon. There's plenty reasonable pruning tools or loppers that can help you with those bigger fruit trees. And finally, the last thing that I come across when individuals prune their fruit trees is that they just don't do it. That's a common mistake of most beginner gardeners, is they just don't prune their fruit trees because they don't know what to do. This video, along with my articles, will give you all the information you need to do to be confident when pruning your fruit trees. Take your time, keep it around 30% of the tree, and you will not hurt it, and you will be very happy with the results. Consistency is the key. Do it every single year. If you don't do it early on, or you wait too long, you're just not going to see the results that you want to see. Please like, follow, subscribe my YouTube, my Instagram channel, and follow me on thegardeningdad.com. Thank you for joining this course, and we'll see you next time.